Good morning and welcome to Daybreak on Trust TV. We're live at the Federal Capital Territory and it is a beautiful Monday morning. I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much, viewers, for joining us this morning. It is Daybreak on Trust TV, your favorite morning show, coming to you live from the studios of Trust TV here in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And it is the first Monday of the month of December. The year is waving us a close. It is drawing to a close. What is in store for us?
Well, just nothing. Just work. You know, people in our line of job, don't go on holidays.
Exactly.
So, it has to be work all throughout. Other people are, living the life, enjoying themselves. We're here working. So
exactly.
That's
I just hope you'll be off on Christmas Day at least.
Well, hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Because
a lot of people are actually saying that there'll be no Christmas. You actually have some people saying that this is the first Christmas where people eat beans and gari or something because of the whole economic situation.
Actually, the hardship is really real. It's really real. Economy is really biting hard. Of course, it's not unique to Nigeria, but the situation in the country, which is, of course, what concerns everyone, is really worrisome.
And it's also pertinent to advise people that if you do not have the means, just make do with what you have. Because a lot of people, go about, entering so many vices. Some people go as far as stealing just to prove to their families that they can actually celebrate or afford some things. It's not necessary.
No, it's not at all. It's not at all. Just cut your coat according to your size, so said the proverb. So we wish you a very good, very memorable festive season. Let's try and smile even in the midst of hardship.
Suffering and smiling, Abby.
Exactly. So let's have a look at the headlines this morning. Bandits shoot Imam, abduct worshippers in Katsina mosques.
Only 10% of 7,000 health facilities registered in Edo, says Obaseki.
OPEC Plus agrees to keep out levels unchanged.
All right, now let's take a look at the details of the highlights at this hour. Bandits have attacked a mosque in Maigamji village along Funtua Dandume Road, Funtua local government area of Katsina State, disrupting Isha prayer that was being observed by worshippers on Saturday. A former councillor of Maigamji ward in Funtua local government area of Katsina State, Alhaji Lawal Maigamji, said the bandits opened fire on 2 people, including the imam leading the prayers. He identified those shot as Malam Yusha'u, the imam, and Husseini Jamo, a worshipper. He stated that those shot are receiving treatment at the hospital in Funtua, while 4 of the abducted victims escaped from their captors on transit.
Meanwhile, the Edo State government has disclosed that only 10% of the over 7,000 private health facilities in the state are registered with the Edo State Ministry of Health. Governor Godwin Obaseki stated this over the weekend during the inauguration of the 5-man monitoring committee of the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, MDCN, in Benin City. He said his administration is undertaking a holistic reform of the health system, adding that the committee will play a vital role in rethinking the role of government in healthcare provision in the state. He said the state will no longer accept the situation of people dying in hospitals and no proper investigation to know the cause of their death, adding that registered mortuaries will not be allowed to operate in the state.
All right, away from that story, major oil-producing countries led by Saudi Arabia and Russia agreed Sunday to maintain their current output levels in a climate of uncertainty and ahead of fresh sanctions against Moscow coming into force next week. The representatives of the 13 members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries led by Riyadh and their 10 allies headed by Moscow decided to stick to their course agreed in October of a production cut of 2 million barrels per day until the end of 2023. OPEC Plus described its October decision to cut as one which was purely driven by market considerations, adding that it had been the necessary and the right course of action towards stabilizing global oil markets. The next OPEC Plus ministerial meeting is scheduled for 4th June 2023. And this is where we wrap up the highlights at this hour.
Now up to more packages. President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday took part in the official groundbreaking ceremony of the new headquarters of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, held in Lube, Abuja. The building, which is to be named in the eye of the West Africa when it is completed, hopefully in the next 26 months, is to be constructed by China. Kainde Amadou reports.
The eye of West Africa has been on the drawing board since the 10th of July 2019, when ECOWAS and the People's Republic of China signed an implementation agreement. The building will house the three major ECOWAS institutions, namely the ECOWAS Commission, the Community Court of Justice, and the Parliament.
In the last 3 decades, the operational activities of ECOWAS has expanded, particularly since the revision of the treaty in 1993 and the expansion of the mandate of our organization. Operating from these buildings has brought about many operational, financial, and logistical challenges. It was therefore considered necessary to have a modern, fit-for-purpose office accommodation that will enable the Commission to accommodate all its staff in one location.
Obviously, West African leaders are delighted not only with the diplomatic gift from China, but with what it will represent when completed.
The new complex will represent the unity and brotherhood of the member states, as well as signify a recommitment to process and regional integration. It will be our home and a regional rallying point.
China says to sponsor and construct the new ECOWAS headquarters is a vivid reflection of its support to the work of the sub-regional body.
I am confident that this project will become a milestone for the development of West Africa. This building demonstrates China's sincere aspiration and resolved determination to support the unity, peace, and development of Africa.
It is not the first time China is sponsoring the building of the headquarters of a regional body in Africa, as it was responsible for the construction of the Africa Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It demonstrates the rising profile of China in Africa and is not likely to sit well with Western nations. From the federal capital, Kainde Amadou, Trust TV News.
All right, well, let's move on to more stories. Nigerians, especially low-income earners who depend on kerosene as a major source of fuel for cooking, are unhappy with the recent hike in the price of the product. Now, with the rising cost of kerosene and cooking gas, people are now constrained to use firewood or charcoal to cook their food since they cannot afford gas or kerosene. Silas Lowen takes a look at the impact the rising cost of the commodity will have on the environment. His report.
Environmentalists have warned that the country may experience a high level of deforestation, leading to severe climate change if nothing is done to bring down the prices of liquefied petroleum gas, better known as cooking gas and kerosene. It would seem that the prices of cooking gas and kerosene have soared out of the reach of citizens, and the impact is being felt by the highly vulnerable homes in the country, especially those in rural communities and low-income earners who depend on kerosene as a major source of fuel for cooking.
That cooking gas is about 10,000 plus for 12 kg is about 10,000 naira, and kerosene, I've even forgot how to use kerosene again, because at first they were competing with cooking gas, and I stopped it. And the effect on the environment is this: fire hazard is one, because people are using firewood, cutting down trees and so on. It is not good for our environment. It will cause pollution, smoke, and those who are having asthma is increasing because as a result of the pollution in the atmosphere.
The price of the commodity in most of the filling stations in Adamawa is 750 and 767 per litre, and that price hike has resulted in decreased patronage from residents. It is indeed a difficult time already for Nigerians, as stakeholders acknowledge that the average Nigerian may not be able to afford the new prices of gas and kerosene, but still have to cook their food to survive.
Seriously, women were suffering. Somebody like me, I will talk about myself in particular. I've never used firewood, but this time around, we all have to learn how to manage. We use firewood, even the ordinary coal that is very cheap, as cheap as 700 per bag. Now is 3,000. Truly, we are suffering. Now it's not everybody that can now afford the gas. So you can imagine the life we are now going through.
And the kerosene are in the increase. But as mothers, we are economical. We make sure that we utilize the little resources we have because we want to make sure things are easy for us, because all the hardship is on women, because we have children to cater for, and even our husband, we cater for them. We help them a lot.
It is also causing more problem concerning food items in the market. Everything has skyrocketed because fuel is very expensive and every other thing. So one thing is tied towards the other. So actually our markets, our economy is horrible, and everybody is complaining.
Nigeria, like most parts of the world, has been dealing with soaring energy prices, including diesel, except petrol, which is still tightly regulated in the country. From Yola, Silas Lowen, Trust TV News.
I would say that the cost of kerosene, the last time I saw that it has gone over 1,000 naira per liter.
You know, kerosene, a lot of people seem to think that kerosene is actually cheaper than fuel, but it's actually, it has always been, or for the past few years, it has been more expensive than fuel. And we were just talking about, the economic crunch and how it's affecting a lot of people. And it's really, really sad considering the, hazards of using firewood. People are resulting to go back to that. But then, it seems like we're going back to the days of our great-grandfathers right now.
To the olden days. Yeah, that's true. Because, of course, with gas, I think the issue is that with gas, you have to buy, maybe some amount at a go, maybe like 3 kg, even if it is, or 5 kg.
But how long will that last, especially if you cook morning, afternoon, and night?
People think it's something that you can buy maybe 500 or 1,000 naira and then use it at your go. You can't buy gas in piecemeal like that. So that is why a lot of poor people still resort
to kerosene than gas.
But then, and of course, even buying the gas cooker, buying the cylinder and all that. But then the cost is now prohibitive.
I think it has to do with mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, there's a lot of people, of the opinion that, okay, when did gas come into, the whole equation? We've been using kerosene for decades, so let's,
that's
continue
also
doing
one of
that.
the issues. Exactly, it's also one of the issues. But I think, those concerned should actively promote this use of alternative sources, especially clean energy gas, for domestic use. Well, let's move on. Medical experts have continued to warn citizens against indiscriminate use of traditional remedies, particularly because of the absence, I beg your pardon. Medical experts have continued to warn citizens against indiscriminate use of traditional remedies, particularly because of the absence of scientific research into pharmaceutical components of such herbal concoctions. Some citizens, however, remain firm on their convictions that the indigenous medicine is effective if taken in appropriate doses. Ado Musa completes the report.
As an important element of national security, public health not only functions to provide adequate and timely medical care, but also track, monitor and control disease outbreak. To this end, stakeholders said all hands are required to be on deck towards smoothing the process of accessing healthcare for the less privileged in the community.
For the surgical outreaches, we intend to carry out surgeries, hyenopathies, that's those with hernia, appendectomies, those with appendicitis.
Some residents find it hard to modify beliefs they have held onto for so long, which is why they patronize herbs not because they are superior to Western drugs, but because traditional medicine has over time cured their ailments. Users of herbs argue that Western medicine only reduces pain of some ailments, but herbs are often effective in healing the diseases completely. Some of these residents have come to collect herbs from this just herbal doctor. I came to collect medicine for malaria and typhoid. We come here because people enjoy his herbs. The herbs are very effective. We have noticed that the traditional medicine cures illness completely, but the modern one only subsides the disease. I came to collect medicine for my child. He was unconscious. We went to a hospital. The doctor said they couldn't identify any problem. But when we came here and collected some herbs, we are beginning to see changes in the child. Malam Hassan Ahmad is the herbal doctor in the area, said he has been giving medicine for different kinds of ailments for over 2 decades. There are different kinds of medicine here. Whichever problem you come with, by the special grace of God, we will give you the medicine to cure them. People have seen the result of taking traditional medicine because it is reliable. I give medicine for Lassa, malaria, cancer, hepatitis, among others. Medical experts have warned that the recent increase in organ failure in Nigeria is as a result of indiscriminate use of unregulated concoctions, many of which lay claim to healing all sorts of ailments. Nevertheless, these residents are ready to risk it because they believe that the traditional herbs were effective if properly used. They even claim that some professional doctors sometimes patronize the traditional herbs for some diseases. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Well, talking about cutting your coat according to your size, if this is what you can afford and it does the job, then why not? Because
health is the most important thing. You don't joke with your health, and also health is wealth. So whatever you spend on your health is not really a waste; it's an investment. And saying this reminds me of someone who was keeping money, one of these actually Almajiri boys in way back, I think during the cholera in '96. So he was keeping money with one woman in our area, and then he fell sick, and then they opened his PG bank and treated him. And when he got well, he started making trouble with the woman. Now, who asked her to spend his money on? Well, so what I say is that, you have to spend, because health is the number one thing. If you are sick, then what is the use of money? Or if you die, and I think people should really be cautious and should adhere to what the professionals say about use of
traditional medicine.
It's not like all traditional medicine is not
Before
good,
modern medicine was traditional medicine as well.
But we should use them with some level of modesty and some level of regulation. Yes.
All right, so let's move on to more of the stories. 1 week after he was sworn in as the 6th governor of Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke has taken some actions that set tongues wagging. While some perceive Adeleke's decisions as politically motivated and vindictive, many applaud him for his desire to correct the mistakes of his predecessors. Hamid Oyegbade chronicles the governor's first week in office in his report presented from our studio.
During his swearing in at the Oshogbo City Stadium on Sunday, November 27, the new governor, Ademola Adeleke, who claimed to be a Muslim, did not hold the Holy Quran as he merely raised up his right hand. Adeleke delivered a lengthy maiden address and announced a reversal of some state policies, including the change of the name of the state from the state of Osun to Osun State, nullification of recent appointment of some civil servants and 3 traditional rulers, namely the Are of Ire, the Akirun of Ikirun, and the Owa of Igbajo. Same day, Adeleke appointed a former local government chairman from his hometown, Ede, Kazim Akinleye, as his chief of staff. Also, he appointed another former local government chairman from Oshogbo, Teslim Igbalaye, as the secretary to the state government. The governor appointed Rashid Olawale, the Iwo-born Abuja-based journalist, as his chief press secretary. On Monday, The governor was in office where he signed 6 executive orders to back up his actions. He suspended the chairman and members of the Osun State Independent Electoral Commission and ordered senior career officers to take charge at the local government councils across the state. The rest of the week was dominated by accusation and counter-accusation between Adeleke's team and that of his predecessor, Adegboyega Oyetola, on the debt profile of the state. On Friday, Adeleke stormed the Oshogbo Central Mosque where he observed Jumat service, but residents were wondering why the governor did not hold the Holy Quran during his swearing-in. Adeleke has since become the talk of town, as many people see his actions as politically motivated and vindictive, while others said his decisions were okay.
Yeah, my opinion is that I think he's getting it right, so that there will be no problem in any turn, so that there will be peace all over the state. That is what I think that he's trying to do. So we pray for him that Almighty God will continue to uphold him.
Sacking of 12,000 workers, right? That one is spot on as well, because in the first place, I don't think the previous administration was supposed to bring those people on board in the first place. So I think the man is doing well, and I believe we will enjoy his reign in Osun.
The new government will be peaceful. It pleased God to give him to us as governor. We feel relieved and we hope to make it under the current administration.
Okay, about the new government, actually I can't say if it is good or not because I don't really know much about politics. All I know is as far as everywhere is peaceful and it's okay for the people, then the government is good. But if it is otherwise, then I will say it is not good. That's all.
Before this action is taken, maybe I send some other people to investigate and see that what the other opponents doing is not good. That's all. I cannot say what is doing is good, what is doing people will like it or not, people will not like it. It's their own conception. That's all.
Amit Oyegbade, Trust TV News, Oshogbo.
With that report from Osun State, we'll be moving now on a short break, and when we come back, the show will continue. Do stay with us.
That's great. It's good to see you.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the same, not necessarily tribal or regional. But I have said that.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now let's take a look at the newspapers, at this time. We'll start with Daily Trust newspaper, and we have the lead story that says bandits abduct 46 in Katsina villages attacks. We have writers that says students, worshippers, children among victims, imam others wounded. Kidnappers demand new naira notes for ransom. We've rescued 4 chasing the attackers, says police. You can find details of that story on page 5. At the top of the page there you have NNPC, Chevron secures 610 billion naira funding to drill 37 oil wells on page 24. Buhari rules unconstitutional regime changes in West Africa. Details on page 5 still. IPOB behind attack on Imo INEC office, says police. We also have more stories just beside the pictorial there of the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, and Guinea-Bissau, an outgoing ECOWAS president, and a lot of others during the groundbreaking ceremony at the 62nd ordinary session of ECOWAS authority. All right, more stories. INEC tracks 52 campaign incidents in 2 months. We also have ASP stabbed to death as naval police officers clash in Lagos. Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso renew pledges at Arise TV CDD Town Hall. And these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, up next is this leadership newspaper, and the lead story says, at Arise Town Hall, Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso denounce poverty rates in Nigeria, identify security as major cause, roll out plans for education, health sectors. And then to the left of that, Zenith wins Bank of the Year Nigeria from the banker. Qatar 2022, England beat Senegal to set up quarter-final showdown against France. And at the very top of the page, Tinubu speaks at Chatham House today, 7 years after Buhari, story on page 7. And then Imo attack, INEC loses 7th office to arsonist in 4 months. Details of that story is on page 4 of today's leadership newspaper. And below the masthead, illegal custom checkpoints frustrating trans-border trade, say shippers. These are some of the stories in today's The Nation, leadership newspaper.
All right, up next is national economy, and we have the lead story that says on 4 trillion naira annual loss, escalating illegal mining thrives amid Nigeria's dwindling revenue. Despite government's efforts, criminals continue with economic sabotage. And this and more stories can be found on national economy today.
Okay, after the national economy, up next is This Day newspaper, where on the top of the page is also talking about the Zenith Bank Awards. And then after that, CBN offered 7.33 trillion treasury bills in 6 months. Details of that story is on page 5. And just below the masthead, Adeleke, Oyetola set many traps for me. I'm yanking them off. Story on page 58. Buhari, we need urgent action plan against terrorism in West Africa. Wants new ECOWAS management to complete ongoing reforms. Flays unconstitutional changes in sub-region. Then the lead story this morning, with poverty, education, health in focus, presidential hopefuls mull solutions at Arise Town Hall. And the story has riders. One Atiku, I will remove bottlenecks, wastages in government. Obi, I am ready to channel subsidy funds to key sectors. Kwankwaso, ensuring financial autonomy for LGS, critical. And then below that, we have a pictorial showing groundbreaking ceremony for new ECOWAS headquarters performed by President Muhammadu Buhari and other West African leaders, along with Chinese ambassador to Nigeria and the FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello.
All right, let's move on to Punch newspaper. We have the lead story here. Bauchi, Gombe fight over new oil wells. And we have writers that says 4 oil wells are in Gombe. Boundary Commission hypocritical, says Governor Special Advisor. Kolmani is in Gombe. Late NNPC GMD misled Buhari. And, Niger Delta scenario looms, says residents. We also have matter taking different dimension. Bauchi governor will consult, commissioner assures stakeholders. And we have more stories at the top of the page. Poor network, INEC to meet NCC telcos Tuesday. Nigeria's telecom subscribers hit 214 million. Marketers resort to private depots. Shortage hits NNPC. We also have more stories at the bottom of the page. Federal government unveils new curriculum for varsities today. Police, Arekpo Estate, accused of plotting murder, suspects released. And these are some of the stories you can find on the Punch newspaper this morning.
Up next is the Guardian newspaper. Some of the stories on the front page this morning. Contempt. Court okays suit seeking removal of Chief of Army Staff. Details of that story can be found on page 4 of today's the Guardian newspaper. Then Tinubu absent as Atiku Obi Konkoso spar at Arise TV debate. And by the side of that, Serap sues Buhari over failure to probe alleged missing trillions in ecological funds. Details of that story are on page 4. And the main lead story for Guardian this morning, after 251 days, Abuja Kaduna Rail service resumes amid 6.6 billion losses. It has many riders. NRC, that is Nigeria Railway Corporation, saying FG only lost 130 million to Abuja Kaduna Railway closure. Fare hike takes effect today. We increase fares due to diesel costs, improve security, says Ohiria. And IGP assures of safety, deploys personnel en route operational coaches. Expert insists not safe to travel by train unless there is aerial surveillance armed drone patrol. And then Abuja Kaduna Highway to be completed first quarter 2023, Minister assures. And by the side of that, Buhari charges new ECOWAS management to complete ongoing reforms. Story on page 3. And Naira redesign, any attempt to reduce cash holding will cripple economy. And that's a business report on page 15. And Zenith Bank backs Bank of the Year on page 18. So, and then of course, by the side, there's a pictorial showing candidates of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and then New Nigeria People's Party, as well as the Labour Party attending the Arise TV town hall meeting last night. So these are some of the details of the newspapers we have this morning.
All right, with that, we would like to introduce our newspaper reviewer for today. He's the head of investigation at Daily Trust, and he's Fidelis McLever, joining us this morning for a review of some of these stories. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin with the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper, talking about bandits abducting 46 in Katsina villages attacks. What's happening to banditry, especially in Katsina and Zamfara states?
I think for some time there appeared to have been, less incidents of attack in that part of the country. But with this now, it's worrisome once again that bandits will come out and attack communities with this number of people killed. You understand the thing happened in 2 local government areas there, Batsari and Fontua. In one of the incidents, it was unfortunate that even students were kidnapped. While in the other, you had a mosque attacked where worshippers were carrying out their worship activities. So despite the fact that, for some time the military were able to step up their game, and then we had a reduction in the incidents of attack. But once you still have them like this one coming, it's a worrisome development, and I think the security agencies will still do more to be able to contain this. It's a sad development indeed.
Yeah, so now looking at this, you could see that the bandits are saying that they only need new Naira notes. And this is not the first time. I think about last week or 2 weeks ago, we had similar incident, I think in Zamfara, where abduction took place, and they are saying they will only collect the new Naira notes. Now, in view of some of the argument made for this currency redesign, that it will reduce incidences like this, do you think that it will really cut off this ransom payment?
I don't think it will cut off ransom payment because, you know, the primary aim of kidnapping, you know, is to, you know, get ransom. So, and I think they are taking advantage of the fact that these new currency notes have been introduced. And so definitely they will now want to give conditions that they be paid in the new currency. For a reduction in the payment of currency, or for the introduction of this to be able to stop ransom payment, I don't think that would be the case in the nearest future, because primarily that is the aim of bandits or kidnappers. When they abduct, they want to get, you know, payment. And I think they are taking advantage of this to, you know, be able to make a case for the payment of their ransom in the new currency notes.
All right, now let's move on to elections. Right now, we have two stories on front page of Daily Trust that talk about INEC offices, but then INEC now is saying that they've tracked 52 campaign incidents in 2 months, and then the series of attacks on INEC offices, you know, in some parts of the country. What does this mean for the elections, you know, which is just a few months away?
It's worrisome, actually. It's worrisome. It poses some form of threat to the 2023 elections. And like a recent report that was released by the Tony Blair Institute, you know, projected, this kind of incidents are likely to, you know, continue, or to also usher in to the next year's general election. 7 attacks in, I think, in the space of 4 weeks. It's not something that you would downplay, you know. And when they do carry out these attacks, you see that INEC's materials are, you know, lost. It is a trend that needs to be seriously looked into, because the INEC chairman kept saying, well, despite the attacks, they are prepared and they are still going to go ahead with the election. No, nobody's praying that the election shouldn't hold, because it's a democratic, you know, endeavor that must take place. But for these attacks to be continuously taking place on INEC facilities is something that should worry us. And I think, once again, it's a call on the security operatives to be able to up their games so that they can bring this to control, so that confidence will be built again in Nigerians to participate in next year's general elections.
Okay, let's look at the Punch. And in the lead story is talking about Bauchi and Gombe fighting over the new oil wells. You are laughing. Is that surprising? Is that something that surprises you? You know, with Gombe people and maybe officials saying that the oil well actually belong to Gombe and all that. What do you make of the, you know, the argument coming so early in the day?
Actually, I'm laughing because I saw this coming. When they said these oil wells were discovered along that border, and you had Gombe and you know, Bauchi states, I knew that within no time, there would be this fight about the ownership of those wells. So, coming as a lead story in the Punch, I think it strikes me. I don't know how they were able to get that story, but I think it's one of the stories today that I can say is one that is very striking. So, but I think it's too early in the day for these people to, you know, start fighting. Barely just a week or so when the president went to commission that when I thought that now they should be, you know, celebrating and, you know, preparing for the actual takeoff of that project. Now they already started fighting, you know, claiming ownership of the oil wells. It's understandable. It's, you know, it's in Nigeria, oil revenue or oil is like black gold, and it's what you know, people look at. So when you have it in a community like this, or within a geographical area like this, and you see people scrambling for it, it's hardly surprising to me.
All right, well, let's just wrap up with a few stories on Daily Trust. On City and Crime, you have a story of 3 held after hoodlums attack Ogun communities. We have Osun health workers pledged to end female circumcision. We have NSCDC trains 300 vigilantes on arms in Kwara. Edo records 1,079 cases of human trafficking and gender-based violence. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's within the City and Crime, you know, platform. You see that this kind of stories are always there, and they are crime-related stories that also add a lot of interest, human angle, and the rest of them to the newspaper. So for the stories that you've just read, I think they are very good stories that you know, appeal to the human angle elements. Those who you know will read and then you know, be able to dissect them.
Okay, now train services is actually set to resume today. That's the Kaduna-Abuja route. And on page 25 there, you'd see a story of tickets to sell at 3,600, 6,500 and 9,000, you know, even as it resumes today.
That's serious. You know. Well, it's long awaited. You know, this issue of the train services resuming along the Abuja-Kaduna road. Following the incident last time that, you know, passengers were abducted. So, but I see the cost of the ticket skyrocketing or climbing, and I think it's understandable because the year is almost coming to an end, and you know, people are will soon begin to be in a rush to travel and all of that. And again, Kaduna, Abuja, those who travel by road are always afraid. There is that fear of people going by road. So the train, you know, the trains are considered to be safer. So despite that amount, that the cost of ticket, as you just read out there, I think people will still prefer to go by it than to, you know, risk their lives on the roads.
Okay. Let's now go back to the Nation newspaper this morning, where it is reporting that the ex-depot price, that is the landing cost of fuel, has hit 225 naira, and also in the Punch this morning also is talking about marketers resort to private depots as shortage hits NNPC. Of course, this all speak about the fuel crisis we are in now. It's usually perennial with December, but then this time around it's like it's been with us for months. Like, do we see any end in sight?
Like you rightly say, it's perennial, and it usually comes towards the end of the year when you begin to have this kind of development that leads to fuel scarcity. It has been with us for months, if not, number of months now, and it keeps, you know, going on. So I think for an end in sight, immediate end in sight, I do not see any. I think the trend is going to continue until the festive season is over, because like rightly said, it's a trend that is perennial and happens almost every year. So the festive period is here, and when you see them talking about the increase in the landing cost, that means even if the commodity is available now, there could be also increase in the price, and then black marketers will also take advantage of this to begin to exploit Nigerians. So it's something that is still going to be with us until probably after the end of the year.
All right, now on national economy, the lead story talks about a 4 trillion naira annual loss, talking about escalating illegal mining, thriving in Nigeria amidst dwindling revenue, and, criminals, still continue with the economic sabotage, despite government's efforts. Why do you think the government has been unable to nip this in the bud?
Well, I think, I don't know what actually, like the Navy recently also spoke about this matter, saying that the NNPC was, reeling out figures about these revenue losses. But generally speaking, that amount you mentioned is very huge, and something that if deployed into the economy this period when we're having an economic crisis, is going to impact seriously on Nigerians. So, but we are losing this to oil theft and all of that, which is a very sad development. So I think it is important that the federal government and then the relevant security agencies operatives should be able to protect our waterways. They should be able to protect our oil facilities so that this trend does not continue for us to be losing this amount of revenue, which is supposed to be beneficial to every Nigerian.
The drama in Oshun, we have had a package reports earlier on the show, and then in some newspapers there are, especially this morning, is saying Adeleke is saying that Oyetola set many traps for me, but I will yank them off. And I remember it reminds me of a column in today's Daily Trust also, The Perspective, and it speaks about maybe the need to perhaps let me read just a portion of it. Okay, well, what he is actually arguing is that if possibly we can bar outgoing governments from taking decisions, because, talking of traps and all that, how do you see all these things? Because, Oyetola appointed 12,000, employed 12,000 people, promoted permanent secretaries, and then, appointed new monarchs and all that. What do you make of this? Are they really traps? And why do politicians sometimes, especially governors, we have had this incident in many places, do this in the dying days of their administrations?
Well, I don't know whether they are traps, but like you said, it's a tradition that you have outgoing governors taking decisions at the last minute of their departure from office that are sometimes very bizarre, sometimes very unnecessary, But of course, they do this sometimes probably to protect certain interests and then to score certain political goals before they leave office. For the new governor of Osun State, he says they are traps. He knows better. He has just taken over, and from the situation he has made on the ground, he's in a better position to be able to say whether those were actually traps. But he too, when he came, with his drama, he has done a lot of things like, the sack of the 12,000 workers, the sack of those monarchs, and, other things that he has done. So it's a kind of dramatic...
But some people actually think he's overdoing it.
I think there is some element of drama overdoing in what he because it's just within the first week of his assumption of office that all this.
So you think he should slow down?
I thought at this stage he would have been able to settle down, study what is on ground, and then be able to begin to set the ball rolling for the governance of the state. before he could, because some of the decisions he took, even the House of Assembly against it, like he did not, they were without recourse to the House of Assembly. Because if you have to sack people or take certain decisions, the House of Assembly should be able to know, and then they should be able to endorse that. But so I think it's creating some form of crisis that in the coming weeks and months, the state is going to be bedeviled by crisis rather than governance that he has actually assumed office to, tackle.
Okay, now there's this story on Punch newspaper just above it talking about Nigerian telecom subscribers hitting 214 million, which is,
Huge.
quite a number. But then it's marred, the telecoms, a sector is actually marred by poor network, and INEC is to meet NCC and telcos on Tuesday to have a discussion around that.
Yes, I read that story. INEC saying they were going to meet with the NCC ahead of the 2023 election. I think discussions are going to be around this electronic transmission of result. Well, that's a good move because everybody now has come to agree that the way to go in 2023 election is this electronic transmission of results. So if any discussion between INEC and the NCC is going to achieve that, that will be fine. But like you see, the increase in the number of subscribers as announced there, when you measure it with the services that you get from this telecommunication, it's relatively poor. So I think as this number of subscribers increase, and when you have an increase in subscribers, it means a corresponding increase in the amount of money that people pay to access this service.
I thought there were plans for 5G.
Yes, there was that plan for 5G. I don't know exactly now where we are on that plan. But that 5G is supposed to improve the services.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking, don't you think that this number is actually perhaps a demonstration of people's frustration, maybe leaving network A to network B and maybe adding one more line or two more lines because of the failure?
No, it's very, very possible. It's very, very possible because, like you said, people are getting frustrated that, you see one person having 5 networks, 3, more number of networks, because if you go to...
You can't rely on one.
I can't rely on one. So I think something needs to be done to improve the services because Nigerians are really not getting value for their money in terms of the services that these network providers are providing at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. That's been Fidelis McLever, Head of Investigation at the Daily Trust. Thank you very much for joining us for the newspaper review this morning, and we hope to have you some other time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, he's still going to be with us in the next hour. But before then, let's take a break. And when we come back at the top of the hour, the show continues.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
As part of security measures in place to ensure a secure resumption of the Abuja-Kaduna train route, the federal government has directed that the use of the National Identity Number, NIN, is now compulsory for passenger profiling when boarding the Abuja-Kaduna train service. All intending train passengers are to note the new ticketing guidelines. Existing profile owners are required to update their profiles with their NIN. Failure to update will reflect the profile as unverified. Where a profile is not verified, the intending passenger will not be able to purchase a ticket. All new profile registration will now require passengers to include their NIN. All tickets for minor passengers must be bought by an adult. Where the minor has no NIN, the minor passenger's ticket will reflect the NIN of the adult making the purchase. However, only the minor passenger's name will reflect on the ticket and will be verified during the ID check process. It is dangerous to use your NIN to purchase tickets for unknown persons. This may lead to criminal prosecution. Passengers are advised to conduct themselves orderly and avoid altercation with NRC and security officials, as defaulters will be duly prosecuted and severely punished. For NIN, simply dial *346# on your mobile phone and follow the prompts. This message is from the Nigerian Railway Corporation.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
A Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Really, if you look at English score, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV, and we're still live at the Federal Capital Territory. My name is Dasha and Hussein Ausman. Thank you so much for staying with us once again.
It is a beautiful morning here, and it is another Monday morning, the beginning of another week. And thank you very much for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV. I am Abdulaziz, and we'll be bringing some news updates at this hour, and of course some more interesting packages and discussions that are, that are on issues of the moment in the country.
Yes, indeed. All right, so let's take a look at the highlights at this hour. Bandits shoot imam, abduct worshippers in Katsina Mosque.
Only 10% of 7,000 health facilities registered in Edo State, says Obaseki.
OPEC Plus agrees to keep output levels unchanged.
Now the details. Bandits have attacked a mosque in Megamji village along Funtua Dandume Road, Funtua local government area of Katsina State, disrupting Isha prayer that was being observed by worshippers on Saturday. A former councillor of Megamji Ward, Alhaji Lawal Megamji, said the bandits opened fire on people, including the imam leading the prayers. He identified those shot as Malam Yushau, the imam, and Hussein Jamo, a worshipper. He stated that those who were shot are receiving treatment at a hospital in Funtua, while 4 of the abductees have escaped from their captors on transit.
Away from that story, the Edo State government has disclosed that only 10% of the over 7,000 private health facilities in the state are registered with the Edo State Ministry of Health. Governor Godwin Obaseki stated this over the weekend during the inauguration of the 5-man monitoring committee of the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria in Benin City. He said his administration is undertaking a holistic reform of the health system, adding that the committee will play a vital role in rethinking the role of the government in healthcare provision in the state. He said the state will no longer accept the situation of people dying in hospitals and no proper investigation to know the cause of their deaths, adding that unregistered mortuaries will not be allowed to operate in the state.
On the international scene, major oil-producing countries led by Saudi Arabia and Russia have agreed on Sunday to maintain their current output levels in a climate of uncertainty ahead of fresh sanctions against Moscow coming into force next week. The representatives of the 13 members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, led by Riyadh, and their 10 allies headed by Moscow, decided to stick to their course agreed in October of a production cut of 2 million barrels per day until the end of 2023. OPEC Plus described its October decision to cut as one which was purely driven by market considerations, adding that it had been necessary and the right course of action towards stabilizing global oil markets. The next OPEC Plus ministerial meeting is scheduled for 4th June 2023.
All right, with that, we'll move on to more stories at this hour. President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday took part in the official groundbreaking ceremony of the new headquarters building of the Economic Commission of West African States, ECOWAS, in Lugbe, Abuja. The building, which is to be named the Eye of West Africa when it's completed, hopefully in the next 26 months, is to be constructed by China. Kehinde Amodu reports.
The Eye of West Africa has been on the drawing board since the 10th of July 2019, when ECOWAS and the People's Republic of China signed an implementation agreement. The building will house the 3 major ECOWAS institutions, namely the ECOWAS Commission, the Community Court of Justice, and the Parliament.
In the last 3 decades, the operational activities of ECOWAS has expanded, particularly since the revision of the treaty in 1993 and the expansion of the mandate of our organization. Operating from these buildings has brought about many operational, financial, and logistical challenges. It was therefore considered necessary to have a modern, fit-for-purpose office accommodation that will enable the Commission to accommodate all its staff in one location.
Obviously, West African leaders are delighted not only with the diplomatic gift from China, but with what it will represent when completed.
The new complex will represent the unity and brotherhood of the member states, as well as signify a recommitment to process and regional integration. It will be our home and a regional rallying point.
China says to sponsor and construct the new ECOWAS headquarters is a vivid reflection of its support to the work of the sub-regional body.
I am confident that this project will become a milestone for the development of West Africa. This building demonstrates China's sincere aspiration and resolved determination to support the unity, peace, and development of Africa.
It is not the first time China is sponsoring the building of the headquarters of a regional body in Africa, as it was responsible for the construction of the Africa Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It demonstrates the rising profile of China in Africa and is not likely to sit well with Western nations. From the federal capital, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Away from that, Nigerians, especially low-income earners, who depend on kerosene as a major source of fuel for cooking, are unhappy with the recent hike in the price of the product. With the rising cost of kerosene and cooking gas, people are now constrained to use firewood or charcoal to cook their food, since they cannot afford gas or kerosene. Silas Lowen takes a look at the impact of this on the rising cost of the commodity will have on the environment in this report.
Environmentalists have warned that the country may experience a high level of deforestation, leading to severe climate change if nothing is done to bring down the prices of liquefied petroleum gas, better known as cooking gas and kerosene. It would seem that the prices of cooking gas and kerosene have soared out of the reach of citizens, and the impact is being felt by the highly vulnerable homes in the country, especially those in rural communities and low-income earners who depend on kerosene as a major source of fuel for cooking.
That cooking gas is about 10,000 plus for 12 kg is about 10,000 naira. And kerosene, I've even forgot how to use kerosene again, because at first they were competing with cooking gas, and I stopped it. And the effect on the environment is this: fire hazard is one, because people are using firewood, cutting down trees and so on. It is not good for our environment. It will cause pollution, smoke, and those who are having asthma is increasing because as a result of the pollution in the atmosphere.
The price of the commodity in most of the filling stations in Adamawa is 750 and 767 per litre, and that price hike has resulted in decreased patronage from residents. It is indeed a difficult time already for Nigerians, as stakeholders acknowledge that the average Nigerian may not be able to afford the new prices of gas and kerosene, but still have to cook their food to survive.
Seriously, women were suffering. Somebody like me, I will talk about myself in particular. I've never used firewood, but this time around, we all have to learn how to manage. We use firewood. Even the ordinary coal that is very cheap, as cheap as 700 per bag, now is 3,000. Truly, we are suffering. Now, it's not everybody that can now afford the gas. So you can imagine the life we are now going through.
And the kerosene are in the increase. But as mothers, we are economical. We make sure that we utilize the little resources we have, because we want to make sure things are easy for us, because all the hardship is on women, because we have children to cater for, and even our husband, we cater for them. We help them a lot.
It is also causing more problem concerning food items in the market. Everything has skyrocketed because fuel is very expensive and every other thing. So one thing is tied towards the other. So actually our markets, our economy is horrible. And everybody is complaining.
Nigeria, like most parts of the world, has been dealing with soaring energy prices, including diesel, except petrol, which is still tightly regulated in the country. From Yola, Silas Lowen, Trust TV News.
Primary health care development is one of the critical aspects of human needs. This is why stakeholders often organize outreaches to parts of the country where there is a gap in government's provision of quality health care. Beneficiaries of the day free medical outreach in Fufore local government area are grateful for the intervention, which catered to people suffering from different diseases. Again, Silas Lowen has the report.
As an important element of national security, public health not only functions to provide adequate and timely medical care, but also track, monitor and control disease outbreak. To this end, stakeholders said all hands are required to be on deck towards smoothing the process of accessing healthcare for the less privileged in the community.
For the surgical outreaches, we intend to carry out surgeries, hyenographies, that's those with hernia, appendectomies, those with appendicitis, myomectomies, that's in women that have fibroids. Then children sometimes also do hyenotomies, hyenographies. Then lipoma, sometimes you have abnormal growths in people that have stayed for long in their life. So we intend to do this kind of medium or intermediate surgeries in them. So
beneficiaries of the free medical outreach who are mostly vulnerable in community commended the team for coming to their aid, saying they will forever remain grateful. I have never received this kind of assistance in my entire history. I thank the team for coming to our aid and of course those who supported them to render these services for us. I was diagnosed, treated and given some medicine for free. As you can see, I'm recuperating. I have not paid any kobo for that. Stakeholders in the area vow to continue assisting vulnerable and the less privileged to gain access to quality healthcare services.
They are all about here for medical outfit. So they are here on behalf of the 7 local government we have in our zone, that is the central zone. So they choose Fufore. So we are very happy that they have chosen Fufore for their own medical outfit. So that is why we are giving them 100% support, because they are here to see our people, to treat our people, to see how we are going to tackle the problem facing our people.
This free medical outreach will no doubt have gone a long way to alleviate the suffering faced by these beneficiaries. From Yola, Salis Lewan, Trust TV News.
It is still Daybreak on Trust TV. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, the show will continue with a discussion on some topical issues. Do stay with us.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV right here in the Federal Capital Territory. And right now, I'll move on to our first discussion. The Managing Director of the Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending, NIRSAL, has been removed from office. It was gathered that the removal of Aliyu Abdulhamid may not be unconnected with multiple allegations of corruption, including a 2018 5.6 billion naira wheat project meant for farmers in Kano and Jigawa states. Now, Daily Trust had in January this year carried out an investigation on how a multi-billion naira loan guaranteed by NIRSAL for 3 investor companies for the cultivation of 20,000 hectares of dry season wheat in Kano and Jigawa was allegedly diverted by the companies in connivance with NIRSAL officials. And in the course of the investigation, Daily Trust visited the affected communities in the 2 northwest states where farmers said they were deceived. Now we have the head of investigation at Daily Trust, Mr. Fidelis McLever, still standing by and joining us in the studio for this discussion. Good morning and thank you so much for staying with us.
It's my pleasure once again.
So can you, McLever, take us through that investigation which you did some months back? What were the major highlights and findings from that?
Okay, thank you very much. Precisely that investigation was published on January 30th this year. Before then, it took me like 3 months to undertake that investigation. First of all, we had a whistleblower who availed also of documents, volumes and volumes of documents that were related to alleged wrongdoings in NISA. So when I got those documents, I was even at a loss as to where to start from, because there were multiple allegations bordering on different aspects of corruption. Wow. I was said to be going on there. So, but when I went through the document, studied the document, something struck me, which was this issue of the 5.6 billion wheat project. It was supposed to be a pilot project that Kano and Jigawa states were selected as beneficiaries, farmers there were supposed to benefit from it. By the end of the day, we discovered that project did not take place. But the managing director, when we went to interview him...
No, how did you discover that the project did not take place?
I was coming to that. I'm coming to that because I traveled to Kano and Jigawa states. So when we met him, he claimed that the 3 companies that NISA guaranteed that loan of 5.6 billion naira to undertake the project had completed the project, and so he did not pay back the guarantee. NISA did not pay back the guarantee. So we said, okay, fine. You are saying this project has been carried out, but from the allegations that we had, they were not carried out. That was when it became necessary for me now to travel to Kano and Jigawa states, to the direct communities, so that I would be able to interface with the farmers themselves. I wished we even have clips of, because I did a video, there was video recordings of my interactions with them. Okay. And so what we essentially discovered there, the farmers said, look, you know what, in 2017, this 2018 rather, a delegation came from the federal government, you know, saying that there was a wheat project that was supposed to the size 20,000 hectares, which was supposed to benefit smallholder farmers from the 2 states. So by then when these people came, they preached to them, and in the course of that, they were even made to surrender their farms, to lease out their farms, and then promises were made of providing certain inputs and things like words for them to be able to, you know, undertake that the project. So, but when they left, they never saw them again. They never came back again. These are people that I interviewed on camera. In fact, the investigation was supposed to also go for our TV platform. But because of the time that was invested into it, 3 months, and by the end of the day, we were afraid that probably it could be undertaken by events. And so the print version came out on that title, like I said. So basically, our findings from that investigation is just a confirmation of what has happened now. There was a real case of corruption in that place, because after the investigation, the EFCC waded in, and then they went to NISA, invited some officials for questioning, followed by the MD himself. He was also invited by EFCC and questioned over the allegations. One thing that amused me was that after the publication came out, he bought pages in 3 national dailies claiming that what we wrote was not correct, and even threatening that he would go to court through his lawyers, that we should apologize within 48 hours. Before this investigation was published, he went to even the company secretary for legal advice.
So did you try to reach out to him for his own side of the story?
Sure. That's why I'm saying that when we reached out to him, naturally he denied the allegations and said that the project was executed. That it was based on that, his submission, that now it became necessary for me to now go to Kano and Jigawa states to ascertain whether or not, because if you do a wheat project, it's just like this, the evidence will be there. The farmers who partook in it will be available for you to talk to them and for them to confirm. But like I said, I interviewed farmers in Jigawa, Hadija, Ringim, and then in Kano.
And they all said the same
All of
thing.
them said, look, this project did not take place. So we were talking directly with the people who were involved in the project, and they couldn't be lying. So by the end of the day, like I was saying, he went into newspapers and they said the investigation was not correct, the allegations were not correct, and he was threatening to go to court and all of that. The company secretary sent the letter to me, and then I wrote back to explain that, look, this investigation was based on hardcore evidence. And we have the evidence, up to today I still have the evidence. So I wrote back to say, look, we are standing by our story. So thereafter, he never said anything again. So it took very long, but I know that something was going on, because from that invitation by the EFCC, and I had my sources in that place that kept updating me of what is happening there. Even this particular development that, you know, of his sack on Friday last weekend, I got some information from this that, look, this your man, this based on this investigation we have done, this guy has been removed. So I quickly now went into doing some contacts to be able to verify. I eventually also called him and this communications lady. They could not respond. And so based on the credible information that even one of his aides, who is very close to him, confirmed to me that it's true.
Okay, so what about, you know, those 3 companies that were involved? Your report said you actually went as far as reaching out to the companies to confirm, you know, their existence. But you're able to confirm 2?
Yes, the 3 companies are based in Lagos, all of them. So we did a search on the Corporate Affairs Commission to ascertain their status.
And they're all registered on the same day?
They were all registered on, curiously, like I said in the report, they were all registered on the same day, and the registration was just that same year that the wheat project was initiated. There are allegations that the man has stakes in those companies, you know, so that one is subject for another day. So we went to the locations where they provided the addresses in Lagos. In some cases, we did not even see evidence of any operations. Nothing was happening there. So, but we contacted some directors that their names were listed in the Corporate Affairs Commission's listing. So we contacted them. Some will tell you, well, they are not aware whether this project was executed. Some were even saying they are not even aware of the project and stuff like that. So by the end of the day, it's one investigation that we did all due diligence, contacting all the sites to be able to come up, or with that, you know, publication that was published on the 30th of January this year. So I wasn't surprised when I eventually heard that the man has been removed. Because, you know, in Nigeria, chances are that people get to commit these kind of things and get away with them.
Scot-free.
Sometimes, no matter the investigation, the kind of revelation or the kind of expo that you do, by the end of the day, using their, you know, what do you call it, connections in government and all of that, they get away with them. But
So
like they say,
usually with investigations of this scale, there would be a lot of challenges and
Yes.
difficulties.
Yes.
How was it like for you? How was it like, you know, investigating this story to the point of, you know, up till today? Like, how was it?
okay, now that's a good one. First of all, like I earlier said, I had documents that were very, very voluminous. And so you had to painstakingly go through the documents and then to be able to, you know, dissect them properly so that you don't make mistakes. So it was a challenge. I spent nights awake reading through the documents and all of that. Then secondly, when I went to Kano and Jigawa states, I had a fixer, and that fixer happened to be a former staff of NISA. So he had very good information about that particular project. So he accompanied me to the locations where I went. So one thing happened while we were on the way. All of a sudden, the NISA MD started calling him, meaning he had information that the journalist was on ground and was about to, you know, undertake some findings about that project. The guy showed me the phone and said, look, this is the man calling him. And that he was surprised. For over a year or so, they have never had any communications from him. So why was he calling him? And I said, okay, speak with him. So let's hear what he was saying. He asked him, where are you? The guy said, well, he's in Kano. He's just in Kano doing his normal. So he told him he had a journalist was in town and all of that, blah, blah, blah. If he comes, in case he comes across him, he should let him know. So the point is that he was also making desperate moves to even get at me in that location. So it got out to mean that if he knew that you were in such a place, he could even send talks after you and all of that. So that is one of the risks that was involved in it. But then after that, we proceeded to ring him, quickly did what I could do. Idris, the cameraman in Kano, was the cameraman that I worked with. So we did a video recording there. I interviewed the farmers and then proceeded to Hadeja. I also did that quickly and then I returned back to Kano. So in Kano, I did the ones around, and at that point, there was that suspicion that, look, this guy was on my trail. So I even changed my phone number. The one he has my number, the one I've been using to call him. I had to use another number or network for the rest of the assignment in the state, and then I eventually came back. So these were some of the challenges that were there. But then by the end of the day, we were able to come up with something that was, credible.
Okay, well, let's talk generally about, some of these enormous interventions that the CBN has actually, come up with for the past 8 years or so. Now, according to them, it's aimed at creating jobs and stimulating economic growth. Yet, when it comes to interest, inflation, and even employment, it doesn't seem to improve in any way. Do you think they're doing it right?
Certainly they're not doing it right. It's the usual way of doing things in Nigeria. You have very beautifully articulated programs, intervention programs that are meant to benefit the common people. Just like the case of this...
this one didn't even get to see light of day.
It's just like the case of this NISA wheat project. The essence of this wheat, Nigeria imports wheat.
Yeah.
And so if you now have a situation whereby wheat is produced locally, will go a long way in boosting our economy. But by the end of the day, here you are, the very first pilot experiment or the pilot attempt at making this possible in Nigeria. This was how it went. So to answer your question, they are not doing it right, and that is why you keep having issues. You keep having, allegations of agencies that are involved in this doing one thing or the other that is wrong and all of that. So it's actually not. We're not getting it right.
Okay, thank you very much, Fidelis McLever, for joining us and to shed more light on this investigation, which you did. And we hope to have you another time. And with this, we will we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, the show will continue. Do stay with us.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130.
A Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Really, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back. Moving on to our second discussion. All may not be well with Labour Party ahead of the 2023 election. Now, first of all, the Ogun State Executive Council of the Labour Party on Thursday allegedly expelled the Director General of Peter Obi Datti Presidential Campaign Council, that's Dr. Doyin Okupe, and 11 others for refusing to pay their membership dues. Now, although the party defied the crisis and unveiled a 62-page manifesto over the weekend, how ready and prepared is Labour Party ahead of the elections? Now we have joining us in the studio the media team member of Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Ibrahim Umar. Good morning and thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
All right, so first of all, let's start with the 62-page manifesto that was released recently. What makes it unique from every other candidate's manifesto?
Initially, I'll start by the number of the pages, the 62, which represents the years of independence of Nigeria.
Okay.
And you see it's packed with Nigerians. If you go through the manuscript, you find out that it is a masterpiece because it carries all the problem of Nigerians with a preferred solution to the problems. So I would say it is indeed a very commendable work by His Excellency Peter Obi and Senator Yusuf Deti Baba Ahmad. They did a great job for emancipating Nigeria and the Nigerian people, because this is a great job at this stage in time, at this moment. Nigeria needs someone that is strong, bold, someone that is blessed with both a wealth of experience and experience of wealth, someone that is physically and mentally fit to carry the responsibility of Nigerian people. So this is what some of the things that the manuscript contain. And if you go through it, you'll be impressed with what is written inside. And I assure you, it is really something that is going to emancipate Nigeria.
But in what ways, as she asks, you didn't answer that question, in what ways it differs from the Atiku plan or the Tinubu's renewed hope document and the Concourse and all other candidates who have released manifesto? What makes your own manifesto unique? What makes it stand out?
Yes, the thing that makes it stand out among the rest of the pack is, if you go through it, you'll find out that it is the main thing that people need that is being stated inside. For example, the securing the life and properties of the weak and vulnerable citizenry is the essence of the existence of government anywhere in the world. And that's the first among the 7 priorities of the government, securing the Nigerian people. And again,
what are the other priorities?
Yes, we have shifting the emphasis from consumption to production. And you agree with me, this is one of the problems we are facing in Nigeria. As they said, an idle mind is a devil workshop. I am a young man, I know, and you know what I mean when I say an idle mind is a devil workshop. The lack of unemployment in the country is part of the thing that is contributing to insecurity in the country, because estimatedly we have more than 10 million graduates roaming the street without work. So shifting from consumption to production will make every youth to have something to do in the country. And I assure you, this is part of the thing we need at this critical stage in time. And reforming the policy making of the country is part of the 7th priority. Fighting corruption is part of that, restructuring the policy making, and youth inclusiveness in governance is also part of it, and enhancing the human capital of the youth, particularly for us to see our potentials. I am an example of this. As a young man, I'm in my 20s. For Peter Obi to entrust me with this responsibility, it speaks volume of the government you expect come 2023, inshallah.
Okay, so now this particular developments come in barely 48 hours, after the Director General of the Campaign Council, that's Doyin Okupe, and 11 others were sacked. Does this in any way affect the chances of the Labour Party, during the elections?
But the secretary come out and defies what Labour Party Abi Ogun chapter did. He said it's not in accordance with the constitution of the party. So I don't think it's going to affect anything.
Okay, Ibrahim, your party, a lot of critics of the party will say you don't have a formidable structure. I know you always say the people are the structure, but then if you don't have something really strong in terms of structures at the state level, at other levels, that will help you prosecute this election, and you are having crisis like this that will lead to the expulsion, alleged expulsion of even your campaign DG from the party, which means that in the state chapter of his own state, there is no unity. How would this sort of divided house, if you allow the word, lead to victory in the election?
You know, there is nothing like division in Labour Party. We are united. Problems arise all the time, and we have our own problems. So is other parties. They have their own problem. We have our own, but it is not going to affect the election come 2023, because, you know, this movement of obedience is something that I would say is a divine movement. God's hand is inside. So the problem we are having is not going to affect the obedient train. And I assure you, inshallah, obedient train is going to land at the promised land come 2023, because the Nigerian people have just decided to forge a common front and just take back their country.
Okay, now talking about the manifesto, you know, a lot of Nigerians were expecting it to, you know, come out sooner than, you know, it did. Why was there a delay?
The delay came because we want to make sure that everything is being, I mean, everything in the problem of Nigerians needs to be known, and it needs to be ironed out in the manifesto. So that's what caused the delay in the coming out of the manifesto, because a lot of stages were followed before the final day of the release of the manifesto.
So now, apart from the manifesto, I mean, we're still on talking about the manifesto and also perhaps possibility of a Labour Party presidency or an Peter Obi presidency. How, what would people expect in terms of, because sometimes Nigerians will say that it's not just about documents, beautiful documents on paper, but in terms of implementation and how that actually affect the life of Nigerians, because even your candidate at some point dismissed the idea of manifesto that is not something that is most important. So how, what are the things that we expect to see different in under and maybe a Peter Obi presidency?
What you expect differently, ideally, is something that you know is apparent to all of us. The four major candidates, you just look at them, their track records, and ideally you understand that leading a country like Nigeria demands someone that is both physically and mentally fit, not someone that is confused to even call the name of his party, and likewise the person that even his principal once was against. So we need a person with good track record as well, both physically and mentally fit to carry the responsibility. And Peter Obi make it like, I am going to make people as the center of the government. Knowing the problem of the people, you know the solution of it. And before we see people are just at one side and the government are at another side. So Peter Obi is going to bridge that gap.
Between the government and the government.
Yes, and bring the synergy between especially the northern and southern part of the Nigeria by having, like, everybody will have this sense of belonging. Everybody will feel this genuine sense of belonging in the government come 2023.
What you just said somehow sparked my interest in something that, of course, has been very topical regarding the Labour Party candidacy. The issue of it being a southern or maybe an Igbo project. A lot of people criticize that this is an Igbo project. What would you say to this?
But saying this movement, obedient movement, is Igbo project is laudable. Look at most of the Southeast governors are fighting against the project. That speaks volume that it is a pan-Nigerian project, not any Igbo, not any tribal agenda again. It's a pan-Nigerian project. And this conniving elite, they don't want the movement to attain success because they know it is not their movement. It is the movement of the Nigerian masses, the weak and the vulnerable, the poor, the youths of the country. They want to take back their country from this conniving elite.
Okay. Now, can you share your thoughts on what Femi Fani-Kayode said about Obi's manifesto, saying it is a pact with a devil and Labour Party should not be trusted with power? And some people actually seem to share that sentiment, considering the fact that a lot of other, in the past, a lot of other parties have actually come out saying that they're going to take Nigeria to the top, but you know it was all false. All hopes were dashed.
He's entitled to his opinion. I respect what he said, but you see, Peter Obi is a working example of what we expect come 2023. His track record in Anambra State speaks volume. He is the person that deals with insecurity decisively in Anambra State. Make Anambra State, in terms of education, one of the best in the country. In terms of economy, while some other governors were leaving their state with huge debt, he left a huge amount of money in the account of Anambarian. So this is what we expect from a person of this probity integrity. He is tested and trusted. So he's someone that, rest assured, we know he's going to deliver because he was tested and trusted.
But you know, two successors of Peter Obi, the former governor Willie Obiano, had come out at some point to say that the claim of the amount of money that you now say is humongous left behind by Peter Obi was not true. And then recently, the current governor, you know, Professor Charles Soludo, also came out very harshly on Peter Obi to mention that some of the things that you campaign with are not really factual. What would you say about this?
Yeah, Peter Obi is idea best. He said go and verify. Anything he said go and verify. And most of the people that went ahead and verified, they found it to be true. So this money he left, it is true. Everybody knows that. And most of the people that went ahead to verify, they testify that he was saying the truth. They can say what they want to say because of their own political strategy. Most of the people used this type of strategy of saying, telling people a lie to manipulate them. But what Peter Obi said is definitely a factual fact because most people verify.
All right, so just before we wrap up, how prepared is the Labour Party for the 2023 elections?
We have a 5-star solid and firm preparation for 2023 election because my belief of structure is people representation, and we have representation in all the 774 local government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and across all crannies of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the people are willing. It is a shishiless transaction. And you saw what happened.
What does that mean, shishiless?
Yeah, I mean, we are not going to buy people. Okay. Like our support for Peter Obi is born out of the strong conviction that he is the best among the pack. And he's the only person that is going to emancipate us from the shackle of insecurity, poverty, and many social ills.
But Ibrahim, looking at the reality of Nigerian politics, would you succeed without shishi?
Yes, to some extent. You have seen it. You have seen it. During the 1st October, a lot of people came out in mass to show their support to His Excellency Peter Obi. And we did not pay them. We did not pay them. The organic and unrefined love, you see it. He's the only person that enjoyed that among all the candidates. So the people are willing. He's the only person that gives them hope. So that's what you expect. Without that shishi, people are going to vote for us. They have shown it, and we think they are going to stick to that ideal of a better Nigeria more than people that will come and enslave them with money.
But looking at, still talking of money and also structure, looking at the people that he's up against, you know, perhaps he has the list, of course, with all respect to his very well accomplished profile, but he has like the least profile in terms of, you know, Konkoso was governor, minister of defense, senator, and all that. And then Tinubu, as well as Atiku. These are people that have a lot of muscles in terms of finance and network and all that. So you are convinced that Peter Obi will really be able to defeat all these three people?
The network you are talking about is a network of political cabals, I believe. And I tell you that these political cabals did not come from another planet. They developed themselves from the scratch. One day they were nothing even to be mentioned. And there are people that will come after them. And you see what is going to happen in 2023. Because the people, one man, one vote, that's democracy. And the people are willing to come out in mass and vote for their preferred candidate. take 2015, for example. The present president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, doesn't have the muzu as the incumbent president, but he won because the people believe in him. He's the only person that gives them hope.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that discussion on the Labour Party manifesto and, you know, every other thing that has to do with the party. And that was Ibrahim Umar. He's a media team member of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you very much.
All right, with that, we have come to the end of Daybreak on Trust TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. But we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same station, only on Trust TV. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman.
I'm Abdulaziz. I wish you a very beautiful Monday.